Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 3 Karma Yoga. Text 23. यदि हम न वर्तयम जातु कर्मणे अतन्द्रितः मम वर्तमानुवर्तन्ते मनुष्य पार्थ सर्वशः.
For if I ever fail to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path.
Text 24. Ussideyurime loka na kuryam karam chedaham sankarsaya cha karta syamupah mima prajaha.
If I did not perform prescribed duties, all these worlds would be put to ruination. I would be the cause of creating unwanted population, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings.
Text 25. Saktaha karmanya vidvanso yatha kurvanti bharata kuryad vidva sansta sakta shi chi kirtu lok sangraham.
As the ignorant perform their duties with attachment to results, the learned may similarly act, but without attachment, for the sake of leading people on the right path.
Text 26. Na buddhi bhedam janye jnanam karma sanginam joshet sarva karmani vidvan yuktaha samacharan.
So as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of the prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities for the gradual development of consciousness.
27. प्रकृते क्रियमाणानि गुणे कर्माणि सर्वशः अहंकार विमूढ़ात्मा कर्ताहमिति मन्यते.
The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are in actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature.
Text 28. तत्वितु महाबाहो गुण कर्म विभागयोः गुणा गुणेषु वर्तन्त इति मत्वा न सज्जते.
One who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, Almighty armed, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for the fruitive result.
Text 29. प्रकृते गुण समुदा सजन्ते गुण कर्मसु तान कृत्सन विदो मंदान कृत्सन विन विचालयेत.
Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge.
Text 30. मयि सर्वाणि कर्माणि संन्यस्याध्यात्म चेतसा निराशीर्निर्ममो भूत्वा युध्यस्व विगज्वरः.
Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight.
Text 31. ये मे मतमिदं नित्यं नोतिष्ठन्ति मानवः श्रद्धावन्तो न्यसूयन्तो मुच्यन्ते तेऽपि कर्मभिः.
Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teachings faithfully, without envy, become free from the bondage of fruitive actions.
Text 32. ये त्वेतदभ्यसूयन्तो नानुतिष्ठन्ति मे मतं सर्वज्ञान विमूढान् सन्तान् विद्धि विनष्टान् चेतसः.
But those who, out of envy, disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection.
Text 33. Sadrisham cheste swasya prakrte ज्ञानवानपि प्रकृतिं yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati.
Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish?
Text 34. Indriyasya nindriyasya syarthe ragdvesho vyavasthito tayorana vashmagacheto hayasya paripanthino.
There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and their objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization.
Text 35. Shreyan savdharmo vigunaha pardharmat savanushtitat savdharme nidham shreya pardharmo bhayavaha.
It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties, even though faultily, than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duty, for to follow another's path is dangerous.
Text 36. Arjuna vacha atken paryukto yam papam charita purushaha anichanapi vasharne baladiv niyojitaha.
Arjuna said, O descendant of Rishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force?
Text 37. Shri Bhagwan vacha कामेश क्रोधेश रजो गुण समुद्भवः माशनो महापाप्मा विद्येन मिहि वेरिणाम.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is all devouring sinful enemy of this world.
Text 38. धूमेना विर्यते वही नर्या यथा दर्शो मलेन च यथोलबेनावृतो गर्भस्था तेने दमावृतम.
As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by the different degrees of this lust.
Text 39. आवृतम ज्ञान में तेन ज्ञानिनो नित्य वेरिणा काम रूपेण कुंते दुष्पूरेणा नलेंचा.
Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire.
Text 40. इंद्रियाणि मनोबुद्धिर स्याधिष्ठान मुच्यते एतैर्विमोह्यते येष ज्ञान ज्ञानमावृत्य देहिनाम.
The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him.
Text 41. तस्मात्त्वम् इंद्रियाणो इंद्रियाण यादो निभ्य भरतशभः पापमानं प्रजहि होयनम ज्ञान विज्ञानाशनम.
Therefore, O Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curve, this great symbol of sin, lust, is regulating the senses and slaying this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization.
Text 42. इंद्रियाणि प्राणेया हुरीन्द्रियभ्य परम मनः मनसस्तु परा बुद्धिर्यो बुद्धे परतस्तु सहा.
The working senses are superior to dull matter. Mind is higher than the senses. Intelligence is still higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence.
Text 43. एवं बुद्धे परम बुद्ध्वा संसत भयात्मात्मना जहि शत्रु महाबाहो काम रूपम दुरासदम.
Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind, and intelligence, O mighty armed Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus, by spiritual strength, conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hey Krishna, wonderful. Fantastic husband and wife team there. So Shabani Mataji, wonderful, very fluently done the English. And Girish Prabhu, excellent pronunciations, very nicely done on the Sanskrit as well. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Prabhuji.
both
Hare
of you.
Krishna.
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, so let me just share the main document for today. Okay, devotees, we're continuing reading the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. We'll just do a chapter recall, a review, summary so far. Text 3.1 and 3.2, Arjun is asking about renunciation or work. He's confused, he wants clarification. From 3 to 9, Nishkama Karma Yoga. 10 to 16, from Karma Kanda to Karma Yoga. 17 to 35, Nishkam Karma to set correct example. And now the current section, which is the last section, 36 to 43, beware of lust and anger. It's a very important, very instructive section, this. So we'll start, today's verse is 37. So we'll start with that. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, text 37. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhava. Mahashanno mahapapma vidyenam iha vairinam. The supreme, the translation and Prabhupada ki jai. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with a material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world." So just before we go to the purport, just to put some context to this. So this is, the Lord is replying Arjun's question. In text 36 yesterday, Arjun, this was, now Chandra must have, Prabhu must have covered this. Arjun is asking Krishna, why is somebody forced to act sinfully? Even he doesn't want to do it, but he's compelled to do activities. So this is the answer that Krishna is giving, that it is lust only. And he'll explain it further in the purport. So purport is divided into 3 screens. So I will, just 1 second, let me just get the list of participants so I can look at who's there, and then we can request. Okay, let's see now. Okay, the first page, I can see Ajay Bhai there. So Ajay Mukund Prabhu, could you read the first page? And now let me just, before we move on, I'll also mention the next 2 and see what happens. Let's see, let's hope they're there. Bhavini Ben or Andrew Prabhu, you can do the second page.
Okay.
Great. And then I'm looking at down here. Okay, Mukesh Prabhu, if you're there, you can do the third page. And then if you get stuck, we'll get other people. So we'll start with Ajay Mukund Prabhu, if he's there.
Hare Krishna. I
Hare
can't.
Krishna.
I'm just listening in. Sorry.
Okay, Mukesh Prabhu, no problem at all. Thank you so much. No, thank you for saying that to me. In that case, we will ask the last page. Maybe we'll ask Jyoti Mataji to do it if she's there.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Ajay Mukund Prabhu, you can start the purport. First paragraph.
Page 103. When a living entity, can you hear me correct? All right.
Yeah, yes, Prabhu, we can.
When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or, in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusions. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity. And it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ajay Mukund Prabhu. Thank you very much. So, Bhavini Ben, if you can take us to the next paragraph.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are parts and parcels of this spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence, when the service attitude is transformed into a propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities. And when by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position.
Thank you so much, Andrew Prabhu. And Jyoti Mataji, please, third one.
This inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra, wherein it is said, Atato Brahma Jignasa. One should inquire into the Supreme, and the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janmade Asya Yato Navadyad Itarastascha, or the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. If therefore lust is transformed into love for the Supreme, or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravana, but by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies.
Thank you, Jyoti Mataji. Wonderful. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamsa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Mitam Tam Sajivam Sadhavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Sutahamsya. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Niti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pucharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pasha Kadeshapari. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. So, there's a dead insect on my desk. I just need to get rid of it. So, yeah, as usual, we will pick up the main points of the purport and just try and churn out the nectar that Prabhupada has given in those verses. So we start from the very first line of the purport, first sentence, couple of sentences. When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. So this theme about lust, so lust transforming then into anger and stuff like that, right? That eternal. So there's a in the 14th chapter, 14.5, this is explained how when we come into contact with material nature, we get covered by them, we get conditioned by the modes. Anybody know this verse, 14.5? Sattvam rajastamaiti guna prakriti sambhavaha nibadnanti mahabaho dehe dehinam avyayam. The translation is there in with this picture. It says material nature consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And when the living entity comes in contact with nature, it becomes conditioned by these modes. So every living entity, when it comes into material nature, absolutely every one of us, including Prabhupada often says that from Lord Brahma down to the little ant, everybody is governed. As soon as you enter the material world, then we're governed by these modes. So this impurity of these modes happens only when we come down. The constitutional position of the soul is completely pure. Our original state is completely pure. The Lord is Satchit Ananda, and so are we. Sat meaning eternity, Chid meaning full of knowledge, Ananda, bliss. So we are also Satchit Ananda. But once we get covered by the modes, then we become impure, conditioned. That's why the phrase of often you will hear is conditioned soul. Conditioned soul simply means all the souls that are under the influence of the modes. So how the example often given is how water, for example, rainwater is pure water. And you would say not really, because if you do collect rainwater in a pot, it's quite polluted. It is polluted only after it comes in contact with the atmosphere. If you think about it, so nature has arranged, God has arranged such an amazing situation, right? We have got the biggest bodies of water on this earth are seawater, the oceans. Oceans are salty water, and salt water is no good for consumption. It's no good for cooking. It is no good for irrigation, right? So the Lord has mercifully arranged so that the sun can beam upon the ocean and then evaporate the water, which becomes the process of distillation. So distilled water in form of the vapor is then it forms into clouds, and then by the mercy of the wind god, those clouds are moved across to places where rain is needed, across to the land, and then it rains. And that water is completely pure. As it is coming down, it is pure water. Only thing is, when it comes in the contact with atmosphere, then there's pollution in the atmosphere, and then it gets polluted. Similarly, the soul coming down from the spiritual world is completely pure, and it's just the contamination of the modes that causes the problem. So here in this verse, in this particular verse, they're talking about kama esha, krodha esha. So the word kama in scriptures is used in a wider sense. Kama, generally speaking, we refer to as lust in a narrow sense, as like sexual desire and like that. But actually, lust in the scriptures, it means desire for any material enjoyment based on the bodily concept. That's all lust. Whether it's lust for maybe get more money, or eat some tasty food, or even craving for some prestige, honor, like that. So or maybe craving some for power. All that is lust. So that's just the clarification. So moving on to the on the purport. Further on, it says, then again, when lust is unsatiated, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion. And illusion continues the material existence. So this theme is explained in the second chapter. Very famous two verses, 262 and 263. Anybody know these verses? It starts with Dhyayato Vishayan Pumsan. Rupa Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, my humble obeisances. I don't know the Sanskrit verse, but I know I can say the English a little bit.
Okay, you can do the English.
That also broken, because I think it's as soon as the senses come in contact with the sense objects, desire or something, desire for enjoyment develops, and because of that, because the mind is there, so the intelligence is lost. When the intelligence is lost, then one falls into the material pool, something like that.
Yes, that's good summary. Good summary. We'll look at the exact translation. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rupa Mataji. So, Jayata Vishayan Pumsa, Sangasteshu Pajayate, Sangat Sanjayate Kama, Kamat Krodha Vijayate. So, this particular verse says, while contemplating the object of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, a lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. And the next verse, Rupa Mataji, do you know what the next verse would say? Even if just if you summarize it like you did before.
So what was that? Yeah. So.
Anger. We come up. If the 262 is taken us up to anger. Now you're going to take it from anger further on.
Okay, anger. From anger, complete loss of intelligence, and from that, then the person falls down into the material pool. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's good. Couple of steps missing in between. But
Oh, sorry. sorry,
no
sorry. Hare
problem.
Krishna.
No, that's fine. So we just say, so Sanskrit says, Krodhat bhavati sammoha smriti vibhramaha. Smriti brimshat buddhinashat pranashyati. So from anger, so we were up to anger. Now from anger, complete delusion arises. From delusion, bewilderment of memory. When the memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And as Puja Mataji said, when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So in the purport, Prabhupada is saying, therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity. And it is lust which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. So here in this 263, it says he falls down again into the material pool. It's the same thing. So what is lust? It is explained in the purport. Lust is the perverted reflection of love of God. In the spiritual world, we have love of God. And as we know, everything in the material world is a perverted reflection of what is in the spiritual world. So love of God here, actually, it becomes lust. And think about it. If you think the highest level of bhakti, what is the highest level of bhakti? If you think about, the stages of bhakti, what is the highest level?
Love of God.
Prema Bhakti.
Prema, exactly, yes. Bhava is the one before that, but the prema, love of God. So both answers are correct. Prema Bhakti is the topmost. So imagine, because it is a perverted, you see, when something is perverted, then what is in the top looks like it is at the bottom here, like that, right? So similarly, here he's saying that love of God is the highest stage of spirituality. So in perversion in the material world, which is lust, so it is the most powerful force, negatively speaking, in the material world, right? Lust is the most powerful force. So something which is so pure, in the perverted reflection comes out as something which is to be avoided. So, okay, in the purport of, I'm just looking at time, maybe, okay, I'll just quickly read it. One who is not Krishna conscious, is Prabhupada saying in 262, one who is not Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the desires, the object of the senses. The senses require real engagement. And if they are not engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of the other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects. And the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation, but when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridas Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he was similarly allured by incarnation of Maya Devi, but Haridas Thakur easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion for Krishna. So you see, here's the two opposite examples. So Krishna consciousness is the safest place to be. This story of Haridas Thakur last week we heard, Palika Mataji narrated it so nicely on the Thursday class. So this is the purport explaining. Again, Prabhupada's already giving the answer that you need to be in Krishna consciousness to be. If we just sort of artificially try and suppress lust, it's not going to last long. You can succeed for a day or two, maybe even a month or two. But again, our lower nature always takes over. So the idea is to give better engagement to the senses so that the lower engagements are forgotten. Then, I want to give also Gurujan Prabhu's analysis of lust, which I read today. So he says lust is more subtle than wrath. A man of lusty intentions may go undetected, but an angry man, however, is very easily noticed. Lust inevitably turns to wrath because it cannot be satisfied. Lust burns like fire And like fire, it is all devouring. If fuel is added to fire, rather than satisfying the fire, it makes the fire burn more fiercely. So you see, all our desires, sometimes we think, okay, if I get this, I'll be satisfied. But you know, human nature is not like that. Our lust will never, the more you give it, the more it will demand. So it really is a losing battle. This is what the point he's making. Then he says, in the Raj Neti, the instructions for Kshatriyas on diplomacy, it is said that an enemy is controlled with words, gifts, position, or finally punishment. Lust, however, is Mahapapam. In this verse, he says Mahashanda, right? Mahapapam. The mightiest enemy, and most of these ordinary methods will not defeat it. So ordinary things will not work because lust is so powerful. So Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan says, he comments that danda, punishment, is the only way to deal with lust. So severe punishment is the only way to deal with lust. Lust arises from the mode of passion. So we should meticulously avoid rajoguna, mode of passion, if we wish to be free from lusty desires. So we must be alert all the time. That's the point. Continues the purport. If, therefore, the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. So the modes, right? So these are, of course, the three modes, Sattva Guna, Raja Guna, and Tamo Guna. And so if we are not in the mode of goodness, then we will be either in the mode of passion or mode of ignorance. Generally speaking, as we've discussed before, rarely it is like a pure mode. It's always a combination. But the point here is, when we say mode of goodness, if you are predominantly in the mode of goodness, then it's taken that fine, you're in the mode of goodness. Similarly, predominantly passion, predominantly ignorance. So what happens to those who are in passion and ignorance? All the time, they are full of anxiety and live in fear. So, you know, because you are always in the mode of passion and ignorance, because you're always in the want of something, or you are in fear of losing something. So this is the two ways you always remain not settled, you're always disturbed, right? If the mind is filled with fear and anxiety, then where is the question of peace or bliss? So for those people, that's why if you're in the mode of passion and goodness, there really is no question of peace or bliss. You will never have it. We will never have it. So then now the question is how to cultivate the mode of goodness. So first of all, we have to lead a life of a regulated life. And this is the first thing we learn when we come to Krishna consciousness. This is the first thing we learn, isn't it? That we need regular life. We need to wake up early. We need to start doing some regular sadhana. We need to make sure we offer our food. So all these things are regulations. And when we start leading a regulated life, it makes the atmosphere very conducive to move on to the mode of goodness. Then plan the day diligently to avoid time wasting. So very, very important thing. There is so many, especially nowadays with the modern gadgets, modern entertainment equipment, there is so much opportunity to waste time. So we must carefully plan our day, very, very carefully, diligently to make sure that time is not wasted. So important. Then do not leave things to the last moment. That's another important thing, because that again will put us into anxiety and we get into the mode of passion then. So do things timely rather than leaving them too late. There was a survey done recently where somebody was given some tasks. So they wanted to find out men and women who are more diligent. So they did a survey and they took equal number of men and women, and they gave them a task, and they said that they gave it to them on a Sunday and said we want it back by Friday. Then they monitored from the computers when actually they started the tasks. So all the men, they started the task on Friday. You know, they had from Sunday to Thursday, they didn't do anything. They waited till Friday to start the task. Women were slightly better. They started on Thursday, but even then, they left it till Thursday. So it shows you the tendency is to leave things to the last minute. And then, of course, you're against the clock. So again, to be peaceful, to remain in the mode of goodness, don't leave things to the last moment. Do things timely. Give sufficient time for these three important activities, right? Chanting the holy names of the Lord, worshipping the deity of the Lord, and reading spiritual literatures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So this should be in our daily plan, not that I'll do it when I get time. This is normally our situation. If and when I get time, I'll read something. No, that should not be the situation. We should be reading all the time. So, yeah, it says if you don't plan, so how does it go? If you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. So planning is very, very important. Yeah. Prabhupada says in the Prabhupada, if therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded to the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from degradation of Ratha. So here, this is the method. We need to have this formula to make sure that we mostly remain in the mode of goodness. Moving on, it's quite a loaded purport. There's so many things to talk about, but I just selected a few. So this material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill their lustful propensities. And when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. So generally speaking, the conditioned living entity follows 4 goals of life. Anybody know what's a term in Sanskrit for that? 4 goals of life.
Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha.
So those are the 4 categories. But what is all of them are called? They are called
Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending.
Or
the condition.
Not quite that direction, Palika Mataji. I was looking for this word, Purushartha.
Okay.
Oh, Purushartha, yes.
Oh, Purushartha, because it's called Purushartha. The word Purusha means living entity, and it's a sandhi of Purusha and Artha. So Purushartha. So Purusha and Artha means goal. What is our Artha, right? So Purushartha, 4 goals. And these 4 goals, as Jyoti, who was Rupa Mataji mentioned, Dharma, which means righteousness and moral values. Artha, prosperity and economic values. Kama, which is pleasure, love, and psychological values. And moksha, liberation. So mostly people just know these 4. And how it works, generally speaking, is that initially people do dharma with motive. They do dharma so they can get a better life. By doing dharma, and we're talking about karma kanda activities here, they will get artha. Artha means they'll get prosperity. And once they have prosperity, then they can use that prosperity to enjoy life. So that means karma. But then what happens, as Prabhupada says in the purport, we find, as we were saying earlier, that lust is never satisfied. And whatever we do, we just feel still dissatisfied. And then a wise person would then say, okay, now I don't want all this. I want to get out of this. I want moksha. So for them, this is the final stage. They want moksha. But actually, the kind of moksha at that time they're also thinking about is just getting out of this material world. That's all they're looking for, right? They don't want anything to do with the material world. And they generally are leaning towards impersonal moksha. But then devotees, when we come in touch with Vaishnava teachings, we have something called so these are the 4 Purusharthas. We have something called the Pancham Purushartha. So what is the Pancham Purushartha, anybody?
Krishna
Must be the ultimate goal is love of Godhead.
That's it. Yes, exactly. Palika Mataji. So bhakti, love of God. So achieving devotion for God, that is the Pancham Purushartha. So only Vaishnavas, only devotees of the Lord, they come to this stage. Others are satisfied just with the other 4. So as Prabhupada says in the purport, Athato Jam Brahma Jigyasa, which means when we get this human body, now it is our chance. And we should be Brahma Jigyasa, we should be inquisitive about spirituality. So then there are examples given. Prabhupada gives towards the end of the purport some examples about when lust is transformed into love for Supreme or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Can anybody remember the examples that were given?
Lord Shiva was Parvati. He was agitated by Parvati, and Kartikeya was born. And whereas Haridas Thakur encountered Maya Devi, but he was not agitated, and he was in complete Krishna consciousness, or devotion, love of God.
Yes, those are mentioned as well, but those are mentioned more in terms of controlling lust. Here we're looking for examples where people used wrath and lust.
Hanuman was.
Yes.
And Arjuna.
Hanuman used, exactly. Hanuman used his anger for the Lord, and he burnt the golden city of Ravan of Lanka, as we know. And by doing so, he served the Lord. So he used wrath as serving God, serving Lord. So point Prabhupada is making is that we can use these propensities even in devotion service. And then, of course, you all mentioned Arjun. So Arjun also in the Bhagavad Gita, as we know, in the beginning, he doesn't want to fight. Even at this stage, in chapter 3, he is not convinced yet. He's still asking so many questions. But once he was convinced, then he fought. And he also used his wrath for satisfaction of Krishna. So therefore, lust and wrath, when they're employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends, Prabhupada says, instead of enemies. So we will stop here. It's just gone 8:30. And I will request any comments or any additions.
Hare Krishna, Mukunda-Hari, Prabhu. I just wanted to understand, Lord Shiva is a pure devotee. He's this Sambhu, he's most perfect devotee of Krishna. So how it can happen? There was an example of Haridas Thakur and Lord Shiva. So I just want to understand, please. Thank you.
So here, I think how to understand it is this, that Haridas Thakur was in pure love of God. He was practicing pure devotion service, as we know. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually gave him the title Namacharya. So he is so elevated. Now, the demigods, as we understand, as we read, the demigods are also devotees of the Lord. But the demigods have their devotion is a little bit mixed with passion as well. But again, having said that, Lord Shiva, we don't even count in the category of demigods. He's actually the head of demigods. So from that point of view, you're right. He is the, Vaishnava, how does it go? Nimlaganam yata Ganga, Devanam Achuto yata, Vaishnavanam yata Shambhu. So Lord Shambhu is the topmost Vaishnava as well. So he should be even higher than the category of Haridas Thakur when you look at it from that point of view.
Yes, that's why I want to understand that.
Yeah. So then that how then you can explain that? Only way to explain that it is a pastime. He's doing that to set and take some kind of an example. So these the devotees actually do some activities, not because they are in that mode, but they do it as
setting an example,
as a lesson for us to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Meena Mataji is unmuted. Meena Mataji, did you have a comment?
No, sorry.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Anything else, anybody?
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna and Amrita Mataji.
Prabhuji, thank you for a wonderful lesson as always. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Just got a quick question, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I feel, and obviously I can only speak for myself, that I feel I am covered by lust day in and day out because I'm a bit of a gymaholic. I love to go to gym. I love to do my runs every day. And I feel that if I don't do it, I haven't done something right in the day. So isn't that treated as lust? The same with I love eating chocolates, material pleasure, right? It makes me feel really good when I eat a chocolate. So I feel, Prabhuji, that even though I do my mala or my reading and stuff, I still feel, Prabhuji, that I am still covered in lust because there are so many things that I do because they make me happy.
Yes. So, Namrata Mataji, so thank you so much for sharing and being so honest. So I would say, number one, we're talking about the gym. Yes, Prabhupada says that we must look after our body. We must make sure that we are fit. And we must make sure, the reason we do that is so that if you are fit, we can serve the Lord very nicely. So nothing wrong in looking after your body. All I would say is that as long as we don't do it as priority and don't be obsessed by it, right? Use it as a tool rather than the main activity. And that way we can reduce our attachment to the activity rather than giving up the activity. You see, it's the consciousness. It's not that we have to give up the activity, we have to give up the attachment to the activity. So that way you can carry on doing your Keep Fit and gym classes. But number one, just keep an eye on the timing. Don't maybe do 6 hours a day or whatever. Do the minimum that you need to do. And also don't have it as your main priority. That's number one. Number two, eating. Yes, eating, certainly we all have. I have a very sweet tooth too, so I have the same weakness. But what, again, Acharya has explained is that we cannot, as I was saying earlier, that we cannot artificially try and control our urges, but we can transform them. So rather than having a chocolate, perhaps, we can try and maybe obtain some mangla sweets from the manna and satisfy our sweet tooth with that. And that way it becomes a spiritual activity rather than just sense gratification. So those are the points I can make.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. There's a few points on the chat. I'll just try and catch up 1 second. So here is Parda Saradi. Okay, so Hare Krishna Prabhu, living entity. Okay, living entity falls into material world as attracted by the desire to lord it over nature. Does that not mean that the living entity is contaminated even before getting in touch with years? Okay, very nice point, actually, very nice point. So at that point, we have developed envy. Everything starts with envy. We were discussing on the Thursday's class. So when we become envious of the Lord, so that's the beginning of our contamination. Our full contamination starts when we fall under that. That's at that point, that point when we are actually with the Lord, and when we start to feel envy, that's when the Lord realizes that, and he can see, he is in everyone's heart, so he can see it, and that's why he arranges us for us to go down to the material world. But we are still not fully under the control of the modes yet, because the modes don't act in the spiritual world. So we have made that desire, which is against our real being, and then we are thrown down into the material world. So the full covering comes after. But you make a good point, actually. It does start there with the envy. Thank you for making that nice point. Hare Krishna, there's more. Let me see. Prabhupada says that living beings have partial independence. But is that true? Everything is preset. Our lifeline, our actions, our failures, our destiny. The misuse of independence is also preset to teach us lessons. Okay, now this is from Surabhi Mataji. Yeah. So you see, if absolutely everything was preset, then there would be no incentive for anybody to do good things. So we come with a certain amount of karma, and according to those karmas, we are put into certain situations. But as Prabhupada says, that we all have our partial independence. So at every moment, Shurabhi Mataji, we are making decisions, right? And that independence, Krishna has not taken away from us, right? So our destiny, because of our past karma, may be that we're going to really do some very abominable actions, and that way keep our cycle going downwards to the hellish worlds. But if we can utilize our partial independence to make the right decision at one point and say, look, here, my friend is saying to me, come, let's go to the nightclub. But, I was just listening to somebody yesterday and they said, I should be not doing those activities. So I will refrain from doing that. And if you make that choice, but that choice is yours. So, it is not true that absolutely everything is preset, because then we will be just robots, right? That is not the case. Yes, by and large, our situations are preset because depending on our karma, but within that situation, we have the freedom to make the decision to turn left or right. That is our decision. That is certainly there.
Thank you. But then who is in control of that, making the right or the wrong choice? The mind?
So, yeah, thank you. So Shruti Prabhu used to say, life is not about winners or losers. Life is about choosers, choices.
And who is in control of those choices? Our mind or God?
So, yeah, no, the thing is, the mind will try and take you to where it wants to go because of the conditioning. But we need to then bring our intelligence in there to control the mind to make the right decision. And our intelligence becomes sharp by being in association with devotees.
But then that is also good luck.
That probably no. That is maybe not pre-planned.
Because not
that, like I say, certain things are not pre-planned. I mean, for example, many people come to the temple, but how many of them actually start chanting and doing things? They're coming there, but they haven't made the decision to chant. So that is still up to them.
Okay, trying to understand. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. So next is from Jay. Let's see what Jay is saying. Jay said, how can one know that they have reached the highest form of bhakti? What are the preceding stages of bhakti? And can they be skipped? And so we go directly to the love of God. Very good. Lovely question, Jay Prabhu. So yes, the stages are very, very clearly explained by Prabhupada and the Goswamis. So it starts like this. Most of the devotees know this. There are 9 stages of bhakti. So there are Shraddha. So we must have Shraddha to start anything. So we must have Shraddha to come to the temple at least. Otherwise we won't come to the temple. So Shraddha leads to Sadhu Sangha. So when you have Shraddha and come to a temple, in temple you meet devotees. That your Sadhu Sangha has started. After Sadhu Sangha, you see what the devotees are doing. For example, when you first go to the temple, you don't even know what to do. But you see a devotee bow down. Then you thought, okay, that's I'm not supposed to do. So then you bow down. So that's the beginning of your bhajana kriya. So your bhakti starts there, right? So Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, bhajana kriya. When you start doing the bhajana kriya, then anatha nivritti starts. Anatha nivritti means that your bad habits start to drop off. Naturally, by being in good association with good people and being in the right teaching, you start to learn the things that you should not do. So anatha nivritti. After anatha nivritti happens, you get nishtha. Nishtha means you become firm, because it becomes a two-way thing. You're making progress by going to the temple, by reading, by meeting devotees, which is then in turn reducing your anarthas, which makes your heart cleaner to then become firm. After nishtha comes ruchi. Ruchi means that now you actually are really attracted. Before you may be doing it mechanically, now you're really attracted. You want to bow down. You want to attend classes. You want to read, right? So that's ruchi. Then comes ashakti. Ashakti means that one stage higher. That means you can't even do without it. You are completely attached to these things now. And after ashakti comes bhava. Very, very high stage. Bhava stage is very high stage where almost all your anarthas are gone and you are almost a pure devotee. But then the final stage is prema, that is the prema bhakti. At that stage, prema bhakti, you have lost all interest in anything material. You are only interested in doing your devotion service, doing your bhajan, hearing classes, and only associating with devotees. And it is said that in the stage of prema, actually Krishna comes looking for us. Not just we have to look for Krishna. Krishna comes looking for us, because there are very rare people get to that stage. But all of us are practicing to be on that path, and eventually we will get there. I hope that answers your question, Jay Prabhu. Okay, Shurvi Mataji, again, I thank you. Yes, the purport says that the Lord Shiva is less than a saint. Sorry, I'm not very into religious scriptures, etc. So wanted to understand, and I don't have so much. I also have a fear of losing few that I have. It's a wrong regarding this purport. So yes, as I was saying, Prabhupada made a direct comparison just to show the extremes. But as in my reply to Palika Mataji's question, I also mentioned that Lord Shiva is not even a demigod. Lord Shiva is a very, very high position. Lord Shiva, his position is in between the demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he is very, very respectable. And he would not be, definitely, we would not consider him below a saint. His position is very, very high, and we should have all respects. And as I said, his pastime with the Mohini Murti or his attraction was probably a lesson that we had to learn from that. Hope that makes sense. Okay, I think that's basically it on the chat boxes. Anybody else? Final question before we close?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, Mukunda-Hari,
Yes,
please. Just something very important for our Krishna conscious movement. Actually, Rupa gave me, because she went to a talk on Sunday. It was all about the Jamuna. I know it's not to relate with Bhagavad Gita, but I just feel it's very important. And because how the Jamuna is blocked with the dam to produce all the basmati rice. And it is advised, or we need to think of not to buy any rice which is coming from India, because it's depriving Jamuna going to the Vrindavan. And actually Shivram Maharaj he stopped buying any basmati from India, because for this particular campaign. So what the community, our movement need to do about this.
Interesting. Unfortunately, I didn't make to that session on Sunday, so I didn't see it. But yes, it's the first time I'm hearing this. Yeah, I would just say follow the acharyas. If Shivram Maharaj and the acharyas giving the instructions, but then I don't know. I don't do the shopping. The wife does the shopping, so I'm not sure what we always eat basmati rice, and we eat the Indian basmati rice. Not sure how we can get rice from other places. But anyway, yeah, thank you for raising that.
It's a very, very, very major issue. I mean, our Jamuna is, Krishna had all the pastime, and it's in the Vrindavan. It goes to Vrindavan. So what we need to do as a community, as a Vaishnava community, as ISKCON community, is very important. So I thought if I bring it here, because you are the speaker, and maybe it will spread. As I understand that Guru Maharaj, I inquired, and Guru Maharaj strictly no basmati from India. So and it was spoken, I understand from Rupa, that it was spoken by one of the god brother at the program.
Okay. Yeah, no, okay.
Thank you for listening.
No, thank you for bringing it up, Palika Mataji. Obviously, it's awareness, and everybody can maybe study that in their own time. Maybe I'm sure if you Google, you find more articles about it. We can find out more. I'm going to do that.
Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you so much. It's 10 to 9. We should now close. So thank you so much, devotees. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhye vacha patita nam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.